This is CBC Vancouver News.
He was definitely a trailblazer and the first or the second of many things.
BC loses a pioneering legal leader. Selwyn Romilly, the first black judge in our province, has died.
You're teaching your children hate.
Offensive in the extreme, it was stupid.
Racist posters spotted in the Tri-Cities spark anger and get police involved.
So for us, to be vocal to make sure that this was not repeated on Canadian soil.
And dozens of Sikhs protest outside the Indian consulate in Vancouver as tensions remain high between Ottawa and New Delhi. Good evening, I'm Dan Burritt. Thanks for joining us. BC has lost a pioneer of the legal profession. Selwyn Romilly, the first black person appointed as a judge in our province, has died. His family says Romilly died overnight on Friday after living with cancer. He was 83. Romilly was born in Trinidad and came to Canada in 1960, graduating from UBC Law School. He was appointed to the provincial court in 1974 and in 1995 became a judge of the BC Supreme Court. He retired in 2015. Romilly's daughter and colleagues call him a trailblazer.
He was definitely a trailblazer and was the first or the second of many things and had to overcome many obstacles to be successful in his era as a black man in the legal profession. He spent a lot of time mentoring young black youth that are interested in law or as they were starting.
He also was very careful to explain what was behind his reasoning in the sense of bringing in precedents, and almost in a teaching way, in a judgment. So we used his judgments a lot.
In May of 2021, Vancouver police officers wrongly detained and handcuffed Selwyn as he was walking near Stanley Park. The force later apologized and updated its handcuffing policy. Disgusting and wrong. Those are just some of the condemnations after racist posters appeared in the Tri-Cities. They called for a whites-only social group for mothers and their toddlers. And as Michelle Gassoub shows us, police are now involved.
These posters advertising whites-only mom and tots events appeared in Coquitlam and Port Coquitlam over the weekend, asking people to escape forced diversity and join other proud parents of European children as we create an atmosphere in which our kids feel like they belong. That language condemned as racist.
Disgust. Yeah, pure and simple.
Coquitlam's mayor said bylaw officers were quickly sent to remove all posters, though most had already been ripped down.
It was offensive in the extreme. It was stupid. It was like it was written not to advance a cause, but rather to inflame.
Port Coquitlam Mayor Brad West said his city also acted quickly to remove them, tweeting, "This vile garbage isn't welcome in our city or anywhere else." RCMP are now investigating where the posters came from. They're not tied to a specific daycare or organization. CBC News contacted the group through the email address provided on the sign, but received no response. The Telegram channel they linked to has now been deleted.
You're teaching your children hate. You're teaching your children exclusivity.
The Anti-Racism Coalition of Vancouver says groups like these are fringe, but increasingly common. They said there are now more white supremacist websites per capita in Canada than in the US.
I'm not surprised at all, because wherever there is an engagement of people talking about racism, talking about rights and equal rights, talking about representation, talking about equity, diversity, inclusion, you're going to find a backlash.
Advocates and leaders offering reassurance their communities will be open to all.
You are welcome, not just welcome, you are loved.
Anyone with information is asked to contact the RCMP. Michelle Gassoub, CBC News, Vancouver.
Dozens of Sikhs protested outside the Indian consulate in Vancouver today. They joined rallies in Toronto and Ottawa at the Indian High Commission. The call comes a week after Prime Minister Justin Trudeau accused the Indian government of playing some role in the murder of a Surrey Gurdwara president. Lindsay Duncombe has more.
For Sikh activists, new urgency for a familiar cause. Hardeep Singh Nijjar, the man who used to lead protests like this, now memorialized on posters. His death, the reason for the collapse of relations between India and Canada.
We're here standing in his legacy and to tell the Indian state today that this type of act of terror against Canada's sovereignty, against a Canadian citizen, the Sikhs will never accept.
It's been a week since Prime Minister Justin Trudeau said there are credible allegations India was potentially involved in Nijjar's death. The activist for an independent Sikh state was gunned down outside a Surrey Gurdwara in June. India viewed him as a terrorist. To the dozens of protesters here, he was a hero.
I call out all the Indian people, all the Hindu brothers, please go watch other newses. Don't get your brain washed by the Indian media.
There are signs that some people are worried at this protest. They don't want to be identified. They're covering their faces. There was a warning sent out to participants saying to beware of agitators that might come and spark violence. We haven't seen any evidence of that.
Anger at India was echoed at protests in Toronto and Ottawa.
And we will not stop until Punjab is liberated from India.
Not all Canadian Sikhs share that view, though. The idea of an independent state divides the community, and some of the most powerful voices for it are in Canada, says this professor.
Across the diaspora, only in Canada is it a live and visible and powerful issue.
Today's protests were loud, but not large. Dozens in each city. They want to see a public inquiry into Nijjar's death. Calls they say they intend to continue. Lindsay Duncombe, CBC News, Vancouver.
Now, Ottawa's diplomatic fight with India is causing growing concern in India's Punjab region. Some in the Sikh majority state feared they could be caught in the middle of rising tensions. India has already suspended visa services for Canadians, and many are concerned Canada may do the same. As Salima Shivji shows us, that would be another blow to the many families and students who travel between the two countries.
On the streets of Amritsar in the heart of Punjab, there's a quiet unease over the diplomatic tensions between India and Canada. Newspaper vendor Ashok Kumar and just about everyone else who stops at his stand are anxious to hear how India is responding to Canada's bombshell, that it has credible intelligence that New Delhi was involved in the killing of a Canadian Sikh activist on Canadian soil. This shouldn't be happening, he says. It's baseless speculation, and the spat will hurt regular people most of all. It's the pain of not knowing where the tensions will go that troubles many here. After India stopped issuing visas to Canadians, some fear Canada will do the same.
I really felt worried about it. I'm still worried about it.
Ramandeep Kaur dreams of studying nursing, one of tens of thousands of students, many from Punjab, who try for visas to Canada every year.
I apply for it. So I don't know what will happen in the future about this issue.
That same fear is weighing heavily on Sarabjit Kesar, the day before she leaves to visit her sons, both students in Canada. Her friend, also the mother of 2 Canadian residents, is making anxious calls trying to dissect the news. Everyone feels depressed like me, she says.
It's a fear, like some such type of the thoughts coming in our like, okay, what happened in the future?
It's not just anxiety about economic consequences. Many here in Punjab worry this will breathe new life into the Khalistani movement abroad. Most here don't even want to talk about it. Support for an independent Sikh state is that low.
Outside Amritsar's Golden Temple, disappointment that the global spotlight is now on a separatist movement that has little traction here.
It's just disheartening because of these things. Some people who don't have any kind of knowledge, they just start hating us. They just portray a picture of Sikhs, then all the Sikhs are Khalistanis.
He says that's far from the truth, as many here feel caught in a political game with very real consequences.
Well, our first fall storm swept across the south coast today, halting traffic on the Lionsgate Bridge because of this. A large metal sheet got tangled up in the lights mid-span. It hung over the lanes earlier this afternoon, prompting police to close the bridge. Crews dragged the metal sheet off the deck and reopened the span just after 2 p.m. The Transportation Ministry says it appears to be the roof of a commercial vehicle. They add there was not much damage to the bridge besides a signal lane that stopped working. Commercial vehicle and safety enforcement staff are now trying to track down that truck. On Vancouver Island, meanwhile, dry riverbeds are bubbling once again. Record drought conditions are being relieved by the rain, and that's allowing spawning salmon to finally move upriver.
Just to get some fish for my family, and it's awesome.
But with that rain has also come high winds. BC Hydro says no part of the island was spared from power outages today, where winds hit more than 130 kilometers per hour. Campbell River, Comox Valley, and the Outer Gulf Islands, as well as Port Renfrew, were hit hardest.
At the peak, we had about 7,000 customers out on Vancouver Island and about 2,000 on the Sunshine Coast. The weather is still pretty volatile right now, so we're going to see some more outages happen throughout the day, and there may be, unfortunately, customers out overnight. A bit too early to determine at this point.
Rough winds caused 4 BC ferries cancellations between Swartz Bay and Tsawwassen, as well as the routes between Quadra and Cortez Islands. Hullo Ferry out of Nanaimo also scrubbed its first 2 sailings of the day. Environment Canada is warning there is more stormy weather ahead. Well, we know the phrase atmospheric river and heat dome, especially in this province, all too familiar in recent years, but there's new extreme weather terms that people need to know. For example, bomb cyclones. So the CBC's weather specialist Darius Madabi is here to explain it.
Well, it finally happened. The return of rainy, stormy weather here in BC. And with it comes the return of terms like bomb cyclone to headlines. Luckily, it's not as scary as it sounds. Now, cyclone is another term that gets a bit of a bad rap, but it's just a low pressure system where the winds are swirling around that center of low pressure. Now, a bomb cyclone is a specific type of cyclone where the pressure in the center drops really quickly. So if you take a look here, see how these bars are all spaced out? And then over just 24 hours, see how close together they get? That means that the system is developing extremely rapidly. This also has names like bombogenesis or explosive cyclogenesis, which are cool, but don't tell you much. Now, bomb cyclones are fairly uncommon, usually forming in fall and winter, but they can bring extreme winds and really heavy rainfall. The bomb cyclone that we're seeing right now is expected to bring wind gusts over 100 kilometers per hour for parts of BC's coast, and rainfall up to 150 millimeters for some parts of Vancouver Island. On the bright side, this has been called a fire season ender for parts of BC's coast, just because of how much rain there's going to be. But given the historic drought conditions that we're in across the province, much of that water is just going to run off, raising the risk of flooding, and the extreme winds could cause these drought-stricken trees to just fall over. So there are some dangerous conditions, so please be careful.
A flag was raised outside the BC Legislature today to honor Indigenous people forced to attend residential schools. Indigenous leaders and MLAs watched as it went up.
We are here today to remember, to commemorate, to honor, and to mourn the loss of so many of our little angels that never came home from residential school.
The flag will fly until sundown on Saturday. That is the National Day for Truth and Reconciliation. BC Premier David Eby is in Ottawa right now, meeting with Prime Minister Justin Trudeau, as well as other senior federal ministers. Their agenda includes opportunities to create new jobs in BC's clean energy sectors, national support for emergencies like wildfires and floods, and how the federal and provincial governments can work together to improve housing in BC.
BC is, I am very proud to say, I think we're leading the way nationally on some of these innovative projects with First Nations, with local governments, and using public land in innovative ways. I can't wait to get into detail with you about that.
One expert says that a trip like this comes down to the BC government's ability to bring home federal dollars. Eby will meet with more federal ministers tomorrow, as well as the U.S. ambassador to Canada. 174 more deaths are being linked to toxic drugs in our province. It marks a small drop year over year and the lowest monthly total since June of last year, but it still means 5 people killed in our province every day by poison drugs. Vancouver and the Fraser Valley saw the largest number of deaths, while the highest per capita totals were in the Northern Health region. Men between 30 and 59 years of age were the most likely to die. Our chief coroner, Lisa Lapointe, continues to call for urgent action, saying, quote, improvements in the quality and reach of harm reduction and evidence-based treatment services are essential, as is the critical need to ensure that those at risk of dying can access safer, regulated drugs. If we cannot implement these changes, our loved ones will continue to die. Coming up, we take a look at the kickoff to 3 weeks of cultural celebrations in BC. You'll want to see this. And hello to everyone watching our commercial-free live stream. Thanks for being here. The Great Canadian Beer Festival takes place in Victoria every September. But as Corey Bullock shows us, this year they hit the road, traveling to the Kootenays with a showcase of breweries from across this great big country.
A celebration of flavor.
The Kootenays is a great spot for craft beer. There's lots of great representation from the Kootenay region here today.
And community.
People have completely embraced, obviously, the buying local and supporting local, and the breweries are now, with their tasting rooms, meeting places, and they're also basically a sense of community pride. So people really have embraced it.
For 29 years, the Great Canadian Beer Festival has taken place in Victoria. And for the first time, they're on tour, bringing dozens of unique breweries and their beers to Cranbrook.
There's so many new breweries around here that it's a great chance for everyone to kind of get together and meet each other and see what the local scene is like.
Craft beer makers from across the country are showcasing their brews, but the event aims to highlight Kootenay breweries.
British Columbia is an amazing, remarkable craft brewery landscape. I think, of course, Canada is known for craft beer, but BC has some really good craft breweries. We really wanted to represent the Kootenay region with the booths that are here today.
Folks from Fernie, Revelstoke, Kimberley, Cranbrook, and beyond were pouring up a bevy of beverages.
The place is packed. We've been pouring lots of beer.
The craft brewery movement has boomed across the country in the last 50 years, with brewers using unique flavors and techniques to get the perfect pint. And the Great Canadian Beer Festival hopes to showcase that.
The craft beer industry is definitely alive and thriving. I know COVID was a hard time for everyone, but getting back into events has been really fun, and we feel very supported by the craft breweries, and I hope they feel supported with us as well.
She adds that bringing the festival to Cranbrook is a dream come true and looks forward to touring the event again in the future. Corey Bullock, CBC News, Cranbrook.
Crowds of people will be celebrating all things arts and culture at this year's BC Culture Days. The 3-week festival is free for everyone, a welcome attraction for many, and as Janella Hamilton explains, a platform for many emerging artists.
Artsy Candle call.
They make a lot of really cool candles with a lot of nostalgic scents.
When Lele Chan moved to Canada at the age of 6, she says it was difficult to integrate into the community, leaving her longing for a place of belonging.
Our parents immigrated here and we were raised to assimilate. So this is our way to reclaim what we know of our culture.
Chan co-founded the first ever Kamayan Festival in BC, a space for Filipino-owned businesses to showcase vibrant food, art, and heritage free of charge.
There are a lot of barriers, especially for children of immigrants and immigrant families, in terms of joining these markets. Sometimes the fees to join them make it hard for small businesses.
We're doing pork belly with shishito, the chicken feet with a spicy barbecue sauce with banana ketchup, and then fish balls dipped in it like a sweet chili sauce.
From pulled pork adobo and chicken feet to Filipino coffee with 100% of profits going to farmers back home.
Every day we eat breakfast, but we don't really know where the food comes from, right? So it's so important that to honor the farmers by putting their names in front of the pack so you know whom it comes from.
For Ro Apellis, creating and selling beaded jewelry with freshwater pearls is one way they help financially support their family in the Philippines.
Feels good to do what I love and then support the people I love.
This year's BC Culture Days is featuring more programs than ever before. 480 events, presentations, interactive workshops, and community celebrations. Emerging artists are also appointed each year as ambassadors.
Many of them represent underrepresented communities, so we have a very diverse group of artists that we're working with this year. And they're working around the theme of access, inclusion, and resilience.
On Granville Island, community members taking in a little flamenco flair.
For me, the song form is the solo flamenco, and that's what moves us as a dancer.
BC Culture Days runs until mid-October, with hundreds of events taking place across the province. Janella Hamilton, CBC News, Vancouver.
A Lakota First Nation artist, meanwhile, has been awarded this year's $100,000 Audain Prize for BC's most distinguished artist. Dana Claxton works in film, video, photography, and performance art. She centers her work on exploring Indigenous beauty, something she says is important while facing the harsh truths of reconciliation.
You have to think of, how did we get there?
Yeah.
And, my own family's been impacted by how did we get there. So I'm interested in looking at that, unearthing it, but also, recovering from it.
Along with Claxton's big win, the Audain Foundation also gave $7,500 in travel grants to 5 visual art students. There's a live look at Harbour Centre. More rain is en route. Darius will explain in your BC-wide forecast.
This is the new look of the VSO, out of the Orpheum and into the great outdoors. The 60-year-old Vancouver Symphony Orchestra has never before dared to have a facelift. This year it's undergoing a complete overhaul. It's trying to slough off its image of being expensive, elite, and stuffy. It wants to be daring, exciting, and accessible to everyone. When the VSO folded last winter due to a long financial struggle, something drastic had to be done.
Are you going to spend $26 for one night, or are you going to spend $26 to buy 2 CDs that'll last you forever?
This spring, 38-year-old Dennis McDonald was brought in to create a dramatic new image for the VSO. It's his company's job to fill a minimum of 2,000, or 62% of the seats for every performance next season.
It's not something that people are anymore going to need to be fearful of or intimidated by. It's Peter McCoppin and the Vancouver Symphony live at the Orpheum.
For a lot of years, people considered
the conductor, someone you don't approach, you don't talk to. He comes out and he's in his tuxedo, and that's all that happens.
McDonald's Group got about $175,000 of federal grant money and 8 weeks to come up with a way to turn the symphony around. Their scheme began with an innovative idea to take the entire 80-piece orchestra out in English Bay on a barge during the Sea Festival fireworks. This weekend, another unorthodox performance in a parking lot at Granville Island drew almost 4,000 people.
Oh, I think it's wonderful that the average person gets some exposure to the symphony they probably wouldn't otherwise have.
Do you normally go and see the symphony?
No, but we've already been talking about it because of the marketing strategy. It's so good.
Good afternoon, Vancouver Symphony. Suzanne speaking.
Just 2 days after ads for the new season ran in the paper, phones are twice as busy as they were last year.
We're having trouble with the lines are jamming. We've got so many people phoning, so when they do get through, they're concerned that they're not going to get what they want. And they're happy. They've seen the stuff that we've been doing outside.
The real test is whether the VSO can maintain the summer excitement when it goes back inside the Orpheum in October. Joni Marr, CBC News, Vancouver.
Hi, I'm Amy Bell, and here's what's in your CBC Vancouver inbox. CBC Vancouver is the exclusive media partner of the Jade Music Festival, October 18th to the 20th. The festival features a variety of events that showcase Chinese-Canadian music and entertainment. And on October 21st, support youth arts education with Gloria Makarenko at Splash, Arts Umbrella's 41st annual gala and art auction. Tickets at artsumbrella.com.
The weather update is brought to you by Direct Buy Furnace. To cool and clean the air in your home, call Direct Buy Furnace. Installing Trane, the most reliable heating and cooling brand.
Time for our BC-wide weather forecast with Darius Madavi, our climate and science specialist. We needed rain, and boy, did we get some across our province today.
We got some. Maybe we should have been more specific with our ask. Somebody asked a genie. It did not give enough specifics because we got tons of rain across the south coast, the west coast of the island getting the worst of it today. Same thing tomorrow. But here in Vancouver and in Victoria, we still got a pretty good amount of rain coming down, probably just into the double digits in terms of the millimeters we've seen. More to come tomorrow and into midweek. So we got plenty more time to get more rainfall down. Here's the forecast, or the totals accumulation over the next 48 hours that we're expecting across the province. Most of it here on the south coast. So places here that we need to keep an eye on are really the west coast, because this is 100 millimeters or more. The really white color is 150 millimeters or more. That is a lot of rain that we're going to be seeing. We can take a look at a different model that shows slightly less rain for a lot of these places. As we zoom out, that'll change a little bit. So slightly less, but still plenty of rain coming for the entire province. A lot of that rain actually making its way into the interior, so some good news there in terms of our fire situation. The high winds that we're seeing really just staying on the coast, gusting up to 90, 100 kilometers per hour. That's not making its way into the interior, meaning really nothing but good news in terms of our fire situation. Our temperatures are staying down as well as we see this, the bomb cyclone you can see off the coast there, pushing a lot of showers into the interior, even into tomorrow, into Wednesday, and even into the end of this week. So plenty more rain to come as temperatures do stay down. You can see we're quite a bit below seasonal across the south. Right now, about 2 degrees below. As we get into the end of this week, anywhere from 5 to 7 degrees below seasonal for the southern interior. So really expect to see the fire danger just absolutely plummet as we get into the end of this week. For tomorrow, we still get plenty of rain for the south. Looks like some potential thunderstorms, especially in the interior. Still possible for places like Whistler, even here in Vancouver tomorrow, but I wouldn't count on it, because if we look at our 5-day forecast, you'll see all that rain. You can see the thunderstorms in the forecast here for tomorrow, but again, pretty low chance. And then just rain, and then we do clear up for the end of this week. So maybe we actually get a sunny weekend for a change. That'd be nice.
That would be. Yeah. And the rain is good too.
happy either way.
Thanks, Darius.
Thanks, Dan.
That's your late news for Monday. Thanks for joining us tonight. Check our website anytime, cbc.ca/BC. Your next local news is on the early edition on CBC Radio 1. That starts tomorrow at 5:30. I'll be on CBC Radio for the rest of the week, so we'll catch you there. Good night.